Ano'ai ke aloha ya kākou. Thank you for joining us today during this most difficult time, especially for the people of Maui. We are here to provide you with the latest information and updates from the county and the state relating to the wildfires throughout Maui. I would like to remind everyone once again, as always, that we are the state of aloha. So we ask kindly that you please operate under the values of aloha, which is extending respect and kindness to each other. Questions and answers will follow promptly after the speakers conclude their remarks. Without further ado, I would like to invite Governor Josh Green.
Aloha. Here is day 8. Every day I've shared this with you before. We're just a little bit more heartbroken because we do have to report that more of our loved ones have been confirmed lost and deceased. Know that our hearts are with every family. We're going to have 7 speakers today, try to give you a full update, lot to cover. So please know that Jamie and our hearts are with all of those families who are here in Maui and who are suffering. So we'll start with where we are in general. 110 individuals have been confirmed deceased. We'll get some details about this from our distinguished leaders in police and fire. 38% of the territory has been covered. They are adding a significant force on the ground, so they are now up to 30 dogs. They'll move to 40. There's now going to be another about 225 relief individuals coming. That's 3 teams of 75. The capacity is increasing continuously to make sure that we can go to every corner of the disaster site. So we share these numbers with you so you can have perspective, but one individual by one individual, it makes us, like I said, heartbroken. And specifically to the families that we have been able to identify, the individuals, Mr. Dykeman, Jantok, the families of those individuals, that's where our hearts break. And we know there's going to be a lot of stories like this. So we're also adding capacity to bring in experts that can work on DNA, some experts from California as well to support our teams. So that's where we are as far as the numbers go right now. The chief will give you details about fire. I will tell you also that we've done a few significant things in just the last day or two. As you know, we opened the road up yesterday. I gave that order after conferring with the mayor and his team. We felt it was necessary after 7 days to begin to restore some psychological normalcy for people as they traveled. We still plead for people to go when they need to, not when they want to, as the chief said very eloquently to us right before we came. As you know, the main hours are 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Please do what you can to limit travel if you don't need to be out there, because it will make it more efficient for people who do have needs at that time. Also, you can foresee there will be some small car accidents otherwise, and we don't want to get locked down again because of that. So we wanted to honor the people with that access, of course. We're going to continue to limit access in the impact zone for now, because there is, again, like I said earlier, some toxins that we worry about, and we're going to rapidly go through that area. They're working very diligently, and that's why we're super augmenting the staff and the team. A couple other things I wanted to share with you. The FEMA team has swelled to nearly 500 people. We're at 492 earlier today. The Red Cross at 270. We're going to give you Red Cross numbers, and we have the leader of the Red Cross here today with us. There's a formidable military presence here also, because there have been some reports, mostly on social media, of concerns about looting or violence. I'll just be candid. Please do not believe what you see on social media for the most part. What we have seen bear out in reality is not significant violence and not significant looting, probably because they're just too afraid to deal with the chief of police when he yells at all of us. So I'll tell you that the force is there, though, for safety. And our military leaders who are here, they're just our neighbors, dressed slightly differently when they're on detail. but they are able to keep us safe. A couple other things. People have wondered about land. That's come up on several occasions. My intention from start to finish is to make sure that no one is victimized from a land grab, that we do not suffer predation against those who are suffering. So I've instructed the Attorney General to work toward a moratorium on any transactions. There's some legal challenges there. We're going to push right through those and make sure that people don't lose their land here in Hawaii. That is central. I've been speaking to leaders all across our state, and that's important to everyone. What that means is we're going to make sure that there are no transactions that take advantage of our people, and we're going to give you some definitive answers by Friday about how hard I can lock that down. That doesn't mean we don't want people to come and invest in Hawaii and travel to Hawaii away from the impact zone. We'll talk about that in a moment. What it means is people are right now traumatized. Please don't approach them with an offer to buy land. Please don't approach their families to tell them that they're going to be better off if they make a deal, because we're not going to allow it. And then between myself and I'm sure the mayor, we're not going to allow people to get permits. Forgive me for speaking for mayor, but I know he's a tough guy. We're not going to allow people to take advantage. And it's going to be a very significant amount of time anyway in the recovery before building could be done. So don't make the mistake of testing us in that space, please. A couple other points. The president's coming. The president is coming on Monday. He's been very gracious. A couple things President Biden has done. From the outset, after I touched down, 20 minutes later, he signed our emergency declaration on day 2 of the crisis. That enabled us to get all this FEMA support and people on the ground, or at least coming very quickly. And then this morning, I believe at 3:30 in the morning, Hawaii Standard Time, I spoke with him again, and he was able to, after I sent a quick little letter over to him at 1 a.m., immediately approve 100% reimbursement for much of what we do. That is a nuanced discussion, but what that means is that hundreds of millions of dollars additionally will come from the federal government that won't have to come from those who are suffering right now. And that's a very important thing. I can tell you it's going to be a long and costly recovery, but much of that work will be done here with our local people. That's going to be another priority for us, using local contractors to the best of our ability so that people who need jobs can get them. We will also form a works program so people can get trained in these jobs going forward. That will also help our young people, many of whom have been displaced. So it's important. So the president will be here Monday. We'll spend time viewing the site. First Lady will be here as well, and we'll be able to give him additional understanding about Hawaii. But like I said, he's been very gracious. Last couple of things I'd like to mention are electricity and power. We're down to about 2,000 individuals that are still without power. It's a little bit difficult to give you an absolute number because some of the structures are still counted in that number, that tally, and obviously power can't run to them. So that's something that is improving. By the end of the month, much of that power will be restored, but there is some very substantial rebuild that has to go with transformers. So that's going to be important and challenging, and we feel, at least all the people that I've spoken to on our team, feel if you're without power, we want to also offer you support just as though you are isolated and lost your home. So reach out to us, contact FEMA, contact Red Cross, as we've explained, so that we can get you resources and get you into a place that's safe if you're suffering without power. Finally, our housing program has become quite robust. That's through the generosity of many. We're over 1,000 hotel rooms now that are available for those who have been displaced, for those who are working on the response, for those who are going to come and do major rebuild. So over 1,000 hotel rooms. We've been spending time with those individuals. They're very grateful to the hotels that have stepped up. This is not going to be at any cost to people. We also have over 1,000 Airbnbs that are going to be available. And we're making plans right now for the long haul, for the long reconstruction, where I'll be bringing some new ideas to bear over time so that we don't have to take any housing away from our local people as we rebuild. So again, mahalo for your understanding, mahalo for being so gracious with our first responders, with people who are putting power lines back together. I've heard only positive stories about just that love and respect for everyone that's been working hard. So mahalo for that. Aloha.
Mahalo, Governor. Next, Maui County Mayor Richard Bisson.
Aloha mai kākou, Elina mai pakahiapa. Welcome to each and every one of you. I want to start off by pointing out why I'm wearing red this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. School started today, and many of our Lahaina Luna students and Lahaina school students have been welcomed into other campuses throughout Maui. One of our two West Maui high schools, Lahaina Luna, but the one most affected, sent its students to other campuses across Maui. Many of these students are survivors of the fires, and some of them lost families, some of them lost homes, many of them lost friends. But the high schools welcoming them today here across the island were asked to wear red by the DOE to show support for these students, as that's their school colors, as they were traveling to, of course, a new school district. So I wanted to honor that solidarity today, showing that unified support among students. And so again, I wear the Lahaina Luna school colors. I also want to extend my deepest mahalo to all the campuses who have welcomed our Lahaina students and who continue to embrace them. Last night we opened access through the Ma'alaya area to allow residents to go back to their hometown, as the governor has mentioned, through his orders, and as well working with our Maui Police Department and our National Guard. Emergency responders and workers are also allowed to go through. And again, as of 6 a.m. this morning, the general public. I caution you, as the governor already has, to please drive carefully in those areas. Be mindful of the work crews, be mindful of the debris that still exists on the roadways, and again, the infrastructure work that's being done to restore our west side. Cooperation, consideration, and respect is what's needed the most for West Maui residents who are trying to make their way back. The area of Lahaina Town continues to be off limits, and you'll see that as you go out there. You'll also witness some of the dust screens that are also being put in place. Again, not just because it's unsafe as a result of the burned structures, the ash, the poles, and the debris through the air, but most importantly, because we continue to search for loved ones who are unaccounted for. We know the community wants us to move quicker, and we will continue to get better at what we're doing, and again, sending more volunteers and more workers to the west side. Our people have gone through so much in this tragedy. To offer relief to those homes that were destroyed, I'm authorizing waiving property taxes for this year, and that includes structures as well as land. The taxes that have already been paid will be refunded to those families, again, to help them to regain, using that to help them recover through this tragedy. We have a housing task force that's been assembled with federal agency support, and then that team is working to develop solutions as we continue to rebuild. Food distribution centers continue at the Lahaina Gateway, Napili Plaza, and Napili Park. With the help of so many volunteers at these centers and at the distribution hub, handling those donations at the former Sears store at the Queen Kahumanu Center, our community and our county together have been able to offer relief to those in need. I visited our shelters and I've seen the devastation firsthand in Lahaina Town. With our residents now being allowed to return to the west side, I will be hosting a community meeting to introduce our state and federal partners supporting us through this crisis. Details on the community meeting will be held on the west side, will be announced tomorrow. We're still working on a location and getting notice out there. Of course, everyone here is invited to join us at that time. Yesterday and today, the governor shared the names of those families, to those families whose loved ones were lost in the fire. Our prayers of comfort are with those families. You know, there are many stories starting to surface as we make our way through each day, and daily I'm humbled and reminded of the power of compassion and hope. For example, we've had 682 volunteers, community volunteers, not Red Cross, not FEMA, but our own citizens who've been working at the War Memorial Gymnasium shelter. They're starting to break down as people are starting to leave the shelter, and that's being turned over to the Red Cross entirely. But my thanks and appreciation go out to each of those volunteers, a few who live in my own home. Strangers helping strangers, families helping families, In the days ahead, there will be more extraordinary stories we'll reveal to you of resilience and things that make us stronger together. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Mayor Bisson. Next, Herman Andaya, Administrator, Maui Emergency Management Agency.
Hello, my name is Herman Andaya, Administrator of the Maui Emergency Management Agency. My thoughts and prayers continue to be with all of those who have been impacted by this tragedy. We too, within our extended Mima family, have been impacted by loss of loved ones, homes, and property. So we grieve with you and are fully committed to see all of us get through this together. The Mima Emergency Operations Center remains at Level 1, full activation, operating 24/7 in response to this unprecedented incident, leveraging the coordinated efforts of our whole of government, a whole community team of partners. We are working tirelessly with a focus on survivors and families of those who have been lost or who continue to be unaccounted for. Our objectives during the operational period are reflected in the missions that we've been working on during this time, including sheltering, feeding missions, points of distribution, family assistance centers, the restoration of utilities, medical missions in West Maui, search and recovery, identification of loved ones, the Disaster Assistance Response Center, the security of the impacted area, damage assessments, debris management, and donation management. We are profoundly thankful for the efforts and assistance of all participating partners at all levels of government, along with our private sector and community-based partners. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Administrator Andaya. Next, I would like to invite Maui County Fire Chief Brad Ventura.
Aloha. There's lots that's going on right now, but in the brief time that I have with you, I want to share a few points on what's going on out there, both sides of the island. As far as the coolest side of the fire and that side of the island, I just want to share with everybody that we're thankful for the volunteers that are out there helping each and every day recently. We just want them to be as careful as they can while they're working in very dangerous conditions. There are lots of troubled spots, there are lots of hot spots. The perimeter has not grown, but we need to know where places are that people need help. So please call our Makawao and Kula fire stations. If nobody's able to answer there, any kind of flare-ups or spot fires, call 911 and we're going to leave where we're at to come help you. Today we flew a recon flight of the Kula fires, and the perimeter, like I said, has not expanded at all. The water in that area is completely restored, so we're able to work off of all the water systems in that area. We have several resources up there today, including the Department of Forestry and Wildlife, as well as our fire department tankers and wildland trucks, along with the normal crews that we have up there on the hill. To give you some idea, the last 3 days, Monday we had 22 firefighters up on the hill just in the Kula area, Tuesday 16, and Wednesday 16. We are spread thin and we are at multiple locations throughout the island. If we do need to get more people up there, we will, but we do need information from the public on where the trouble spots are. Second, the Lahaina recovery efforts. Our MFD teams are embedded with, our USAR teams are embedded with the national USAR teams that are here, and we're continuing to work on the search and recovery. Our suppression companies are also attached to that. Every day we're attaching several suppression companies as well as private tankers, because as we know, the water system is not fully up and running in that area. Today we utilized 2 CH-47s with help from General Logan's team to do water drops this morning, and those aircraft will also be on standby this afternoon in Lahaina as they re-energize lines with Hawaiian Electric. We just want people to remain vigilant. As we know, weather's coming in and winds are up. We are on standby, we are at the ready, and if something should come, we're ready for it. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Chief Ventura. Next, Maui County Police Chief John Pelletier.
Aloha. Again, from the world, we need your patience, we need your prayers, and we will persevere through this. 110 is the number, 38% is the area searched. We have, as we opened up the road, because of the incredible efforts of the National Guard and the other forces that are here, as well as other law enforcement agencies from within the state, to include the sheriffs, to include Big Island PD, to include HPD, to include the FBI and others. We've been able to reinforce the affected burn zone or the disaster zone, and because of that, we were able to open up the road. Now, there is a difference between need and want. If you need to get over there, go. If you want to get over there, don't go. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I need you guys and my officers and the members in these uniforms sworn oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Nevada. And I understand Constitution of the state of Hawaii, which is another one that I swore to uphold. Forgive me. Because we understand the freedom of the press. But when we were here 2 days ago, there was a national news site actually standing on Front Street streaming. Please report the news, but don't be the news. Please. We're adding, because of the Department of Transportation, a dust screen, which does a couple things. It actually blocks the dust and the debris with the winds coming out, but it also obstructs the view, which is a good thing, because we don't need people stopping over on the side and trying to exploit some of the different things that are going in. It's a large scene. And so we're going to ask that you travel to and from where you need to go, and you don't pull over, because you're going to be warned and then you're going to be towed. And we don't say that to be mean or callous. We're saying that because we need to get this done right. We have set up what's called the MINT, the Morgue Investigation and Notification Task Force, with our local and federal agencies, so that we can do these identifications right and proper, that we can use investigative needs and means and measures with our partners, so that we can make sure that we're finding who our loved ones are, and that we make the notifications with dignity and honor. And so as we proceed to do that, it's very complex, but I got to tell you, I met with them. I'm also the coroner, for those that don't know that, and I was extremely pleased. And what this team of servants, and we're all servants, is doing is we're every day asking what's working, what's not, and how can we improve. And so we are going to adjust, and we are going to pivot, and we're going to be doing things, and you might be asking, why are they doing that? Why are they changing? Because we're doing things to make this the best plan possible. This is unprecedented. No one has ever seen this that is alive today. Not this size, not this number, not this volume, and we're not done. And so we ask for your continued prayers. We really need them. Thank you very much.
Mahalo, Chief Pelletier. Next, Brigadier General Steve Logan, Dual Status Commander of Joint Task Force 50.
Yeah, aloha and good afternoon. Hey, I really appreciate you affording me the time to come and bring you up to date on what we've been doing since the last time we had a conference like this, and what we're going to be doing in the future. So yesterday we had a visit from General Charles Flynn. He's the commander of the United States Army Pacific, which is in charge of all Army forces from about the west coast of California all the way out past Japan. Super busy. You know, he has a big, heavy schedule, and he spent the whole day here. He met with the mayor. He went out to the impact zone. He personally thanked a lot of the workers that were out there. He has a really good perception of what's happening. He also was accompanied by Major General Kenneth Harr. You see him a lot on the podium here. He's been designated by Governor Green as the incident commander. So between those two, they're back on Oahu right now, and we have the rest of DOD, or the rest of the Department of Defense assets and capabilities postured to be able to support the County of Maui. We were honored to be able to provide some additional security forces in support of Chief Pelletier and the Maui Police Department that allowed the road to open back up and maybe decongest and provide some relief to West Maui. As stated, we brought over 2 CH-40 Chinook aircraft. They're really big, and they're actively fighting fire, and they're postured for the re-energization of the Hawaiian electric lines. So just in case something happens, they'll be on call. Now, because that was our 2 that we had standing by, we then went through our Title 10 deputy, which is Colonel Dave Fielder, and the active Army has aircraft that are on status, standing by on Oahu, just in case a fire breaks out that exceeds our capacity. So just that, you know, if you don't see it, we still have that capability on call. Today we went out and assisted in planning for that fencing and barrier material that the chief talked about, the screens, to be able to integrate that into the security part of the impact zone so that we can let the critical work that's going on in there continue. And we also have fatality search and rescue teams embedded with the urban search and rescue teams. In the next 24 hours, we're going to bring in some additional security folks. These will further augment the Maui Police Department. We are fully in support of Mayor Bisson's initiatives, and what we're thinking is we're going to apply them up into the West Maui, deeper in, up into the Napali area, to help those residents feel more safer and secure. That's all I have. Thank you for this opportunity.
Mahalo, General Logan. Next, Brad Kaiserman, VP of Disaster Operations for Red Cross.
Aloha, good afternoon. I want to take a moment to just endorse what Chief Pelletier said. My father once said to me, he said, "Son, don't get good at a lousy job." And then I went and became the head of disaster relief for the American Red Cross. My organization has been in every major disaster in the United States for as long as it's existed. I have been in every major disaster in the United States for the past decade. This is unprecedented, Chief. I also want to say the response from the state of Hawaii and Maui County has been equally unprecedented in its quality, its sensitivity, its compassion, and its care for its citizens. I've seen nothing but enlightened leadership in the last week that I've been here. Because of that enlightened leadership, it's important to understand that we all share the same mission, and that is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of this emergency, this catastrophe that has occurred. Thanks to the President, Administrator Deanne Criswell of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and Governor Green, we're able to deliver this program to put the survivors of this horrific fire into hotels, because otherwise they would be in congregate shelters, big open spaces, no privacy, share a bathroom with 600 of your friends. Instead, and think of the trauma that folks have been through to face a fire, to face the decision: do I jump off this cliff, or do I become incinerated? And to lose loved ones, or to not know. And so it can help just to be in a private room. And we're not just going to leave them in a private room. We're going to make sure that they would get all of the same services that they would get if they were in that big congregate shelter. Disaster health services, disaster mental health services, culturally appropriate spiritual care. We're going to make sure that we can help reunify people with their loved ones working with law enforcement. Thanks to the generosity of Red Cross donors all over the world and the enlightened leadership of Governor Green, we are not having to spend donor dollars on congregate sheltering or donor dollars on hotel rooms. As a result of that, we're going to be able to quadruple the financial assistance for people who lost their homes in this disaster. And you have the generosity of the donors of the United States and around the world to thank for that help, and we're going to make sure those dollars get into the hands of those who were impacted by this event. And finally, it's not just about money. What it's really about is care and compassion. And so what I would share is this. You know, there were tornadoes in Arkansas and Mississippi. Probably don't even know that. Tornadoes in Arkansas and Mississippi in the spring. There are still people today who are in the non-congregate sheltering program. There were people who were in fires in Oregon 3 years ago. They're still in non-congregate sheltering programs. So the housing task force and the work that we will all do to find housing solutions will be vital. But we will make sure that while those solutions are being developed, that the people who are impacted by this disaster get all of the care. And we are working with our partners in FEMA, the Salvation Army, many nonprofits, the Hawaii volunteer organizations active in disaster. We're going to make mistakes along the way, folks. We're not going to get it all right. If you let us know what we're not getting, we're going to fix it. But we are committed to helping the people of Maui recover from this horrific event. Thank you very much. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Brad. Finally, Steve Kalanog, U.S. EPA Incident Commander.
Aloha. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Steve Kalanog. I'm with the U.S. EPA. I'm EPA's Incident Commander. We've been tasked by FEMA to conduct Phase 1 of the household hazardous waste removal in the aftermath of this fire. First and foremost, on behalf of EPA, I'd like to express our condolences to the communities affected upcountry in Lahaina, the county of Maui, and the state of Hawaii. Our job, as we've done every year in California for the past 10 years, is to come in after the fires and begin the first step to recovery, the removal of hazardous waste debris. The hazardous waste that remains can include things like paint solvents, cleaners, pesticides, fertilizers, ammunition. First and foremost, this is free to all residents. We are doing this in close coordination with the county and the state, our state counterparts. And we are actually beginning work up in the upcountry area today with our recon teams, and anticipating that we might be able to begin recovery work there shortly. And of course, coordinating with the USAR activities in Lahaina, and at a time what we all agree is the right time for us to begin the work, we will do that. Again, this is free to all residents of the impacted communities. That's all I have.
Mahalo, Steve. Now I would like to open up to questions from the media. I'd like to remind everyone that we welcome all questions, but do ask for your kindness and aloha in asking them. Please raise your hand and await my acknowledgement, at which time I will ask you to state your name and news organization before proceeding with asking your question. I will also repeat the question to ensure clear communications. In the spirit of allowing everyone in attendance the time to ask a question, we kindly request your kokua in raising one question per news organization versus per person in attendance. Mahalo nui, and I will start. Christy, name and news organization, please.
Christy Tomashiro from KH12 News. My question is going back to sirens. Why were sirens not used in Lahaina or upcountry last week, as wildfire is listed as a purpose for them on the official state website?
So the question is around siren use, clarification on that, noting that wildfire use for sirens is stated on the website. Mahalo.
The state-owned outdoor siren system is a tool that we can use, and we've used in the past. However, in a wildland fire incident, the system has not been used, either in Maui or in other jurisdictions around the state. In this case, our internal protocol is to use WEA, which is the Wireless Emergency Alert System, and the EAS, the Emergency Alert System. The WEA sends alerts by text messages to cellular phones, and the EAS sends messages to both television and radio. Local notification system sends messages via text, voicemail, and our landlines. Counties in the state of Hawaii will tell you that sirens have not been used for brush fires. It is our practice to use the most effective means of conveying an emergency message to the public during a wildland fire. And it is the WEA and EAS, along with other local mass notification system called MEMA alerts.
Mahalo. This next question comes from Peter Boylan with the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Is the AG's comprehensive review Is the AG's comprehensive review a criminal or a civil investigation? And is the U.S. Department of Justice and other federal agencies assisting with the inquiry? And this question is for the governor.
Sure. So I thought, because the most important thing we can do at this point is to learn how to keep ourselves safer going forward, that we would start this comprehensive review, right away. And that's what we're doing. So I tasked the Attorney General to do that. She's bringing in outside support as well. There's been some question about whether it could be done independently. The answer is yes. She has stated to me from the beginning that that was one of the purposes. She'll, of course, review what she can, but we will bring outside reviewers also. It's not a criminal investigation in any way. We will bring in whatever help is necessary. Right now, we are working to find out how we can make sure it's safe as we go through hurricane season, as we deal with the reality that there are going to be fires month in and month out for the decades to come, and not just in Hawaii, but all across the country. So we view this as a way to learn and to share, in this case from our tragedy, we want to share how to best protect people all across the planet. That's really what it is. We also are going to bring in individuals like FEMA experts to help us. I've also asked that they consult with NASA and work with the best scientists that work on meteorologic incidents across the globe. We also will have a lot of university input. We won't turn away anyone who wants to be supportive of this research and this study, because we want to make sure that it's safer for all going forward.
Patience, I promise. Okay, our next question, I'm going to take it in the back. Diane.
Diane Alco from KITV. I was wondering, I'm reading these national articles about how there were bodies found in trees, bodies huddled together, and the death toll still continues to be super low as based compared to what people are saying or what I'm hearing on the ground. Like, I understand that Chief Pelletier has talked about the patient. Now, that's for an ID process. Like, is there like a higher body count that we're not hearing about?
So the question is just around clarifying the body count or the death toll.
I really do appreciate the question. We have to be respectful because we got one chance to do this. We got one chance to do this right. And that's what I said, we're going to do it right. Now, we did, on the beginning few days, the recovery for the areas that we could see, whether it was on the street or in a car. And with all due respect, we haven't made notifications. And I am not going to say how we found people when I haven't even told their families. How do I do that? You know, have we found remains that are maybe smaller than other remains? I'm not going to sit here and sensationalize that. But the answer to that is yes. But we haven't, and what I'm talking about is children. Okay? So we're going to do this right. We have to identify them and then notify them. But that's what we're dealing with. We brought in all these extra resources because we need them. And in a rush to go and paint a picture of what the number is, and I said, I don't know that final number yet. It's growing, it's going to continue to grow. We've got 38% that we've searched. But we have to do this right and realize that the responders that are going out there are recovering their loved ones and members of their families, because we have an integrated, unified, urban search and rescue team. And when we recover it, we're going to treat it and it is not, what I'm saying is when we recover the decedent, we're going to treat it with the reverence, the care, and the respect that it deserves. And we have members of the armed forces local from Maui here that are making sure that we do this with the utmost honor possible. I know everybody wants to get that story. I know everybody wants to know, hey, who's on that list? But again, we've got one chance to do this right, and I'm not going to rush it. I'm sorry.
I see everyone, I promise. Thank you for your patience. This next question comes from Allison Blair with Hawaii News Now. Can you tell us when the Maui County EOC was activated for the Lahaina fire, and which agencies were there when the fire started moving toward the town Tuesday afternoon?
Maui EOC was activated on Monday evening at 9 o'clock. Partial activation because of the fires that was occurring out in Kula. And subsequently went to full activation the next day. Initially, there was a Lahaina fire that was under control in the morning, and then another fire broke out later on in the afternoon. At that point, we were in full activation.
Very patient. We'll take the next question here.
Thank you. Jonathan Vigliotti with CBS News. This question is for Mr. Andaya. You made the decision not to sound the sirens, which could have saved many lives. Now there are questions about your lack of experience, that you only took online courses for disaster relief, no in the field experience. Do you regret your decision, and have you considered handing over the reins to somebody with more experience?
So the question is around sirens as it relates to the disaster, and the question is for Herman.
So the news story talks about how I didn't have experience before taking on a job, and that's not true. Before taking on a job, I was a member of the cabinet. I was deputy director of the Department of Housing and Human Concerns, as well as the mayor's chief of staff for 11 years. And so during that time, I was I oftentimes report to the emergency operations centers, and I have done this on numerous occasions. Also during that time, we went through numerous trainings as well. And so to say that I am not qualified, I think is incorrect. In addition to that, when I applied for this position, which is, by the way, a civil service position, I went through a very arduous process, and I was vetted, had to take a civil service exam. I was interviewed by seasoned emergency managers, and they all deemed me qualified. In fact, I was selected. So that's...
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. And the reason why... and
so many people said they could have been saved if they had time to escape. Had a siren gone off, they would have known that there was a crisis emerging. And as we know, so many bodies were found in the ground as the flames.
Do you want him to give you the answer? Or
I
do you
do,
want
but
to
I want to
then
get it out there.
Let him finish his
I'm
answer.
sorry, there's a lot of people.
Well, you're
who
talking
want
and you're not letting him
answers.
talk. If you want to talk, come up here.
I'm ready for the answer.
Then wait.
the sirens, as I had mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis, and that's the reason why many of them are found, almost all of them are found on the coastline. The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded. In fact, on the website of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, the following guideline is provided. If you are in a low-lying area near the coastline, evacuate to high grounds, inland or vertically to the fourth floor and higher of a concrete building. Alerts may also come in the form of a wireless emergency alert. Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone Mauka. And if that was the case, then they would have gone into the fire. And so that is the reason why our protocol has been to use WEA and EAS. By the way, I should also note that there are no sirens Mauka, or on the mountainside, where the fire was spreading down. So even if we sounded the siren, it would not have saved those people on the mountainside, Mauka.
I'm going to do another friendly reminder that we encourage aloha and kindness. Again, we appreciate the questions, but I would encourage all of us to operate under the values of aloha and kindness. So as you're asking the question, please respect the speaker who is responding and give them that space, just as they're giving you the space for you to ask your question. All right, I'll go right here.
Thank you, Wendy Osher, Pacific Media Groups and Maui Now. My question is for Mr. Andaya. I understand that there was a bit of a break in communication between the county and the field. From what I understand, I'm not sure. When did it become apparent
So the question is around what you are hearing is a disconnect between the county and the field, and when did it become apparent that something was truly going on? Mahalo.
So the Emergency Operations Center was in full activation that night. And we had in our EOC representation from the fire department. And so they were in constant communications with the field. And so I'm not sure where that comes from, but I can tell you that we did have communication with the field at that point.
Okay, and when did you find out that people were in imminent danger? At what point? Was it immediately?
It was immediately. It was so I was not there that night. I was in Oahu attending a conference. But what I was told by my staff that they received from the battalion chief that was in the EOC that their crews are being overrun, and so at that point we sent out the evacuation notices.
If we could, I'm going to ask if you have a question related to Herman, please lower your hand. I'm going to give him just a one question break, okay? I'll go here.
All right, Bobby Calvon with the Associated Press and a product of the Land of Aloha.
Thank you.
Graduate. So, and this is for anybody who might be willing to answer this question. You know, after more than a week, public frustration has grown to the point that there's been a breakdown and loss of trust. You know, there's been early missteps, some failures. That's all added to this mistrust, public mistrust. Now much of the operation is actually being conducted, you know, out of the public eye. That mistrust grows even more. For example, people are kind of wondering, you know, whether or not the body counts are true. You know, there are lots of opinions being shared on social media. You've seen all that. The pace of recovery, the safety of water, and that, you know, officials are withholding information and aren't being forthcoming. How do you make sure that people believe what you're saying and regain the public's trust?
So the question is around public trust.
Well, first and foremost, if you're relying on social media, with all due respect.
That's just an example, sir.
Well, as the example you used,
Yeah.
it's a terrible example because social media is the worst source.
Well, sir, you just have to go out and talk out people out in the street.
I think you'll let me answer the question as governor. Doing reporting through social media is idiotic. Doing reporting in person is intelligent, and I'm glad you're doing some of that. We also, as you can imagine, are speaking to people constantly. Everyone is speaking to me through my cell phone. Same can be said of our local officials. We are local people like you described. Don't use social media to judge these questions. You have people who are predators on social media. We know that for a fact. You have people who want to spread negativity. I think you're aware that in this state, for the last going on 5 years now, I and others give you raw data on these crises. Very few other municipalities do that kind of thing. We give you updates constantly. You can say you want to, all you want, that there's public mistrust, but then when the people go out, whether it's people restoring power or the firefighters or the police, we are watching them be mahaloed by people who love them. Do mistakes happen? Absolutely. In a crisis circumstance. Do you expect water to be perfect after the largest fire in the history of any municipality? No. We report that. We started in a comprehensive review within 72 hours. So I know it can be enjoyable to say there are failures, that there's lack of trust. You can look here and see if you can trust me. You can look at this strong gentleman behind me as mayor and ask whether you trust him. But please, do not rely on people who fancy themselves as influencers. The word influencer, right off the bat, suggests that they want to influence you in a position which will increase the clicks on their social media sites. That will increase their popularity, making it about them. Nothing could be more disgusting than that if we're going to deal with a crisis. Look to these individuals who are taking their time before they tell you whether a person died in a car or next to a child, before we're able to tell their aunt or their daughter that they've lost someone. And so we're sorry if you sometimes don't feel like things are shared with you in real time. We care more about people than that.
So, sir, how do you
Your
again regain?
Your question was answered.
I'll try.
And the public trust comes from us coming here every 48 hours to be with you.
Stand by.
You said Farrington, right?
Yeah.
The governor's.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the governor right now. Let me just say to you, I can't answer why people don't trust people. There's bad people in the community. There's bad cops, there's good cops, there's bad priests, good priests, bad media, good media. My guess is you verify all of your sources before you print or write. You make sure that those folks are accurate, that are giving you answers. Anybody can stand here and say, oh, I hear this, I heard this, somebody said this. If you want to verify it and give a name and you tell me the name of the person who said that, where they live, if they're from here, if they're from somewhere else, that might help you with who to trust. The people that were trying to put out these fires lived in those homes. 25 of our firefighters lost their homes that they were trying to put out. You think they were trying to do a halfway job? You think the people that live here that are helping don't care that they're trying? I mean, you spend a lot of time in here, but go out in the field. Get off your phone. Get off your tablet. Go and talk to people. Talk to the people. Talk to the people born and raised here. Talk to the people who are trying to piece it together. The reason you should trust us is because this is our home. The reason you should trust us is we're the ones who suffered the loss. That's the reason you should trust us.
Okay, I'm going to reset the room. So here's how we're going to move forward with the balance of time. When you are called upon and your question is asked, I'm going to insist, not request anymore, that you please allow the answer to be given. If you have a follow-up question, you're welcome to flag me, and I may or may not grant that. I likely will. But I'm just asking for kindness and aloha like I set forward in the very beginning, and we're not really demonstrating that right now, okay? So in good faith, when you ask your question, if you have a follow-up, I will grant that. But I'm asking you guys to allow the answer to be given, because right now we're cutting people off, and nobody is cutting you folks off as you're asking the questions, okay? I'm going to go here.
My name is Miguel Almaguer with NBC News.
Aloha,
I have a
Miguel.
question for the chief or whoever deems it to be acceptable.
Great.
During the height of the evacuation, some evacuees said they were forced to turn around because of roadblocks, or they were actually forced back towards the fire by emergency responders. What is your reaction to that?
So the question is around roadblocks and the impact of that as it relates to evacuation.
Appreciate the question. The only roadblock was way past West Maui, way past Napili, which Kakaloa, it's the one-way road, and we made it a one-way road so that we can get emergency vehicles in, but nowhere was that anywhere near the burn or the affected zone. And I would just say this, I've been here almost 2 years, and I consider myself a guest of the people that I'm blessed to serve. I'm a guest, and I'm the chief of police. What Maui doesn't trust are people, even from other islands, coming here to tell us what's best for us. We will decide. Our people, who we love and we sacrifice for, they trust us, they love us, and we love them. And if it means we die doing our job, so be it, because that's what we chose. Maui trusts her own.
Mahalo. I'll go over here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm Paul Aker, Maui Alert News. Maybe not as sexy a question as these others, but important to a lot of people on the island. Getting a lot of questions about probably the governor and the mayor, what you can do to reassure the rest of the island that the economy is not going to fail. A lot of people are really worried right now that they're getting their hours cut back and other problems related to the fire on the west side, even though they live elsewhere.
So the question is around the economic impacts as it relates post-disaster.
Yes, thank you for that question. No, it's an important question because, like we saw in the pandemic, decisions we make can affect everyone across the islands. So what we're saying now is travel should not be to West Maui, but the other parts of Maui are safe, and the rest of the state, of course, is also safe. I'll be making a much broader announcement and have broader discussion about this on Friday in a statewide address. But we want people to travel to the state to the extent that they're not impacting the hard work that these extraordinary people are doing. Also, I can tell you economic potential exists in great measure going forward in this district, in this region, because there's, number one, going to be a huge lift. I signed off on a $99 million contract yesterday to provide services with some of our dear friends in the Red Cross. I'm anticipating $500 to $600 million of added investment in some of the early cleanup, and then there will be billions of dollars in reconstruction. And we also intend to do a public works program to hire local people so that work comes and stays to our local people. We have seen a decrease in the number of trips and travelers to the state as of now. We understand that. We understand the psychology of someone trying to tell their neighbors that they're going on vacation to Hawaii when they may not be able to easily distinguish, when they're talking about that, the difference between the islands. That's just a reality across the planet. But we've been through this before with other disasters, and we expect people to rally on behalf of the people of Hawaii. A lot of money is going to be invested in Maui in kind of an extraordinary way through relief efforts, and that's going to help us survive.
If I can just add to that, in the short term, because of Gov's work and FEMA and Red Cross and everyone else here, those hotel rooms that would normally have been, fitted by tourists is now going to be filled by not only our local community, but those that have come here to help us, those workers. So that will help with the economy, but of course, people can also apply for small business loans from the SBA. So we're asking, the governor is going to be having more folks come here to help us rebuild, and that's going to require a lot of work with construction companies, contractors, and folks like that. So we expect that will all happen.
Okay, we'll go over here. One question, name and news organization, please.
My name is Concha Moya. I work for DW Germany. My question is to the governor, Mr. Green. You said there are federal laws that allow for people to buy properties, and right now I've been talking to a lot of locals who have lost their homes, and they are at a very vulnerable position, so they are trying to figure out what to do. Some are leaving, and some are reporting that they are receiving calls from people who claim to be realtors and want to purchase a land. Are you aware of this information? How are you handling, do you have a list of people who are in this situation, and how do you, what is your plan to prevent that from happening?
So the question is around clarifying the lands lost during the devastation and predatory practices.
No, that's a very good question. So in order to prevent people from taking advantage and acting in a predatory way toward our local people, I've asked the Attorney General to not allow transactions. She's working out the legality of that in this emergency phase. It is difficult based on the national laws, but we do have a lot of capacity. First and foremost, a clear message from me that I will not be authorizing any building permits or capacity on this land if there's predatory behavior. I view predatory behavior as illegal in this circumstance, and we will prosecute people to the full extent of the law if they misrepresent what they're doing, which is to try to take land from people who are vulnerable and facing severe economic consequences. That's one. Two, we have had, yes, reports of people who are not actually even in the realty industry reaching out, and that is unacceptable to us. So, forgive me. So what we're doing about that is we reached out to the Realtors Association to help support us and prevent anyone from coming into this market and I guess participating in transactions. But most importantly, I would like to see a long-term moratorium specifically on sale of lands if it's not going to benefit local people for other local people. We will bring resources here from outside. There always is going to be investment in Hawaii, but we don't want to see land bought up. And so what I also will do is put together a group of people who are interested in financially supporting all of our recovery mission. Not to buy land up and to hold it, but simply to secure where we are as a community. And I do believe that there are both affluent people and regular working people who are contributing to that kind of a mission, to keep the land in local people's hands. I'd say this, we don't even yet know what the philosophy of the Maui people who have been affected will be as to what Lahaina should look like. That is a decision that has to be made as a community. So we've begun to put together individuals that would like to contribute to that discussion. As you heard earlier, Mayor Bisson is going to be out actually having talk story with people in the community. This is very important for us as first a county and then as a state to know what should happen with Lahaina, which has been in many ways one of the picos of our state for generations. We, though, in my office, will work to block any of those kind of predatory transactions.
We'll join the bill on that.
I'm going to go here. Christina, name and news organization, please.
Christina Jadra, Honolulu Civil Beat. The MEMA director said that he does not regret not activating the sirens. Going forward, if there are intense fires threatening a residential area on any island, will county and state officials consider activating the siren system for fire?
The question is around siren activation going forward in similar disasters.
We will review the process, but once again, as I've said, most of our sirens are on the coastline. So if there is a fire occurring inland, the sirens will be of no use. You have to also remember that that day in Lahaina, it's an outdoor siren, so a lot of people who are indoors, air conditioning on, or whatever the case may be, they're not going to hear the siren. Plus, the winds were very gusty and everything. I heard it was very loud, and so they wouldn't have heard the sirens. And so we believe that the most effective way of getting the message out to the public was through WEA and EAS, and that's the method we used.
Sure, Christina, thank you for asking.
Can the governor address that as well? Your thoughts on whether sirens should be used in fires going forward for residential?
Thank you. Yeah, we're performing a comprehensive review to find out what the safest and most effective science-based way it is to protect people. There are a lot of different geographies across our country. Some use sirens, some don't. It is true that when I first moved to Hawaii, people told me if you hear a siren, it's a tsunami and go to high ground. I'm just saying as an individual, when I came here as a doctor, that was made very clear to me when I lived on Black Sand Beach in Punaluu. I was there, again, when I was a doc, not before I was, long before I was a legislator or governor, and I experienced large wildfires that were up Mauka. It happens very frequently in Ka'u. And in those cases, had a siren gone off, I would have been expecting a tsunami to come. That's what our mentality was. But we will find best practices and give updated information. There's going to be a lot of large changes that we hope to do. We've been contacted, for example, by the Department of Energy, and they've asked what we would like to do going forward. What we'd like to do is we'd like to remove many of the barriers that we have to safety. We'd like to get power lines underground. We intend to invest very heavily on that in recovery. We'd like to have more satellite capacity all across the state, because with temperatures of 1,000 degrees moving 60 miles an hour, it took out a lot of our infrastructure, and that made it very difficult. Obviously, the review is important. We always want to study things. Our administration has been relatively new, and we're reviewing reports. Some said that we had high risks, others said we have very low risks. It's obvious that catastrophe can occur.
The final question will go back to Maui, ending with Akaku.
Thank you. Chief of Ching Johnson with Akaku, and thank you. I have been with the media for some time, and I'm glad to say that it has been on Maui. and in Honolulu. The flavor of a lot of the media, especially from other places, is about sensationalism rather than humanity. And I have not heard, except on social media, the community grumbling about the bad job that was done. There are tragedies, and people always want answers, but I believe that the people that I know and have spoken with, and there's been quite a few of them, are not interested in hanging somebody for what they did wrong. They're interested in preventing it in the future. And we have global change, warming change, that is changing everything. And this fire is another example of it. The winds, the fire, and we're going to have more of it. So that's where we need to really focus. Speaking of the winds, we have rain coming from Fernando. And I'm wondering what you are able to do about it to provide shelter to the ground zero area and to the residents, as well as what can people donate best to help you in that effort.
Okay, so he did sneak in 2 questions there, but because it's the final, we'll grant that. And one question is critically important, so I think it's important to keep that, which is questions around donations. And then the other one is around, as another hurricane approaches, what's being done at ground zero to mitigate any concerns?
Thank you for those questions. So the first thing that we should do is we should, of course, prepare as we are in hurricane season. So the very basic answer, and I'll elaborate, is you do, no matter what, need to have 14-day supplies, because any hurricane that comes near us can be consequential. We've been told so far that the storm is less significant and will, again, likely miss us significantly, but we'll update everyone like we do with the regular protocols, 72 hours out, 48 hours out, and so on. What can people do? The best thing to do right now is to support local people with donations. I want to be direct about that. Financial donations to the American Red Cross or through the Hawaii Community Foundation will make a very large difference. We will also update people if we need more food, or if we need more blankets. That's going to continue. The opening of the road has mitigated a lot of those problems. Again, we want to thank everybody because I will tell you, like I said it the other day, I think 99.999% of the response has been appreciative of these very brave people. I do know that when tragedies occur, and I knew this as a physician, you always ask and wonder what could have been done. Could someone have had a seatbelt on? Could someone have had a different kind of warning? Could they have had their car checked before a tragic accident occurs? Of course those things happen. That is what happens in life. Those are the tragedies. So we'll do all that we can to improve. But thank you for these questions. And for my part, I won't apologize, but I will say we do get emotional about some of these moments and these questions, because we're like everyone else. People call us, they tell us what they see on social media, they tell us what's going on in desperation, and these people take it very seriously and personally, because they have such great pride in what they do, and they want so badly to decrease people's suffering. So when other people are opportunistic or impugn them, it's hard. It's very difficult. It's okay that perhaps is the world and people can continue to do that, but it won't bring back some beautiful person. It won't help us get another hotel room for someone. It won't help us get more donations so that these folks can get things rebuilt, perhaps get scholarships for kids. That's where we have to go as humanity. So we're going to try to stay very positive. And then we're going to put the chief of police out here to yell at least once every couple days. Because we feel strongly that we want to have this dignity in the process. Thank you.
Mahalo nui. That formally concludes our news conference. I wanted to also give a friendly reminder. Please visit Maui Nui Strong to donate and volunteer. Mahalo nui. A hui hou.